Hello Redditors, welcome back to Tales Against Humanity. Now, let's get started. In today's episode, mechanic tries to scam me, receives public embarrassment in return, taking too long at an online game to make me forfeit, I'll give you a taste of your own medicine, toxic coworker, Hebrew thief, I-26F, do not look like I would know a single thing about cars. 5'3" with long blonde hair, soft girly appearance, and an eternal baby face that makes me look about 15-16 years old. I drive a rather beat-up-looking 2004 Avalon. My dad and brother are both mechanics. Not my profession, but I've learned a thing or seven from them, and am very comfortable working on cars. I'm only mentioning my appearance because it's pretty common for mechanics to assume that I'm an idiot about cars. A while back, I was pretty overwhelmed with life and didn't have a good space to do it, so I took my car in to get the oil changed. The place offered a free-of-charge, head-to-toe inspection for any repairs that might need to be made. I knew my car was fine. I had pretty recently changed the air filter and brake pads. Rotors had maybe 40,000 miles on them and were in great condition. New serpentine belt too. Literally, just didn't feel like changing my oil-relevant knots. Before I went to the shop, I actually checked my air filter and it was, in fact, pristine. Also, I usually call my dad while I'm working on my car so we can chat so he knows what repairs/maintenance I've done and that my car is well taken care of. After they changed my oil, the guy came back with the inspection results on a clipboard and was holding my air filter. He had this grave look on his face like something was wrong. Mind you, this is a very busy place and there were lots of customers in the waiting room. He told me that we needed to go over the results because my car was about to be completely broken down and also not safe to drive if I didn't get several repairs done ASAP, because these were all completely shot. The repairs: new brake pads, new rotors, new calipers, replace serpentine and drive belt, new air filter, new compressor or my AC will not work, a heavy threat in the middle of summer in FL, and a couple more generic things. He showed me my air filter that was filled with dead grass, a dead wasp, some dirt, and hair. Bruh. He really scooped some bullshit off the shop floor and put it in my new air filter to try and freak me out. The total? About $1,500 worth of work. It would be more expensive anywhere else, but he was willing to give me a deal, so I immediately start buying myself time by asking some basic questions that I knew he would have to explain, so I could nod at him all wide-eyed while I came up with a good way to respond to what he was doing. What does the serpentine belt do? Is it important? Etc. I texted my dad. I'm calling in a sec, just play along. Told the guy, OMG, that's so scary, I can't believe I was driving around like that. Thank you so much for caring. I don't have the money, so let me call my dad real quick to see if he can help me out. I can't afford this. I then proceeded to enhance my dramatic performance by even working up a tear while I called my dad. The guy is standing there with me in front of all the customers. I put my phone on speaker and gave my dad a whole sob story about how I need money again. I'm so sorry, can you help me? He asked what the repairs were and how much. I said, Ike, but it sounds really bad. He says that it's dangerous. Dad, I can't be without a car. What am I going to do? Then I asked the guy to tell my dad what the repairs were. He rattles it all off and my dad is playing his part perfectly. Oh wow, MMHMM. Oh my goodness, I'm glad you caught this, so she's not in danger anymore. Little did the scammer know, he was the one in danger. He hands the phone back and I drop the facade and start laughing really hard. As soon as Dad hears me, he started cackling into the phone. I said, Dad, do you hear this bullshit? Get this, he brought me my new air filter I just put in to show me how dirty it was. He pulled shit off the floor or something and rubbed it on there. Dad and I continued to crack up. The audience in the waiting room was also cracking up. Scammy Mechany was beat red and completely at a loss for words. Head down and some stuttering was his response. I handed him my air filter and told him to go vacuum it out and to make sure to let me see it before he put it back in. I sat and watched him put it back once it was clean and also watched him pull my car out to make sure he didn't do anything horrible while I wasn't looking. Might have taken it a little far, but I really hate when mechanics take advantage of people who don't know anything about cars, so this felt like a massive win. Big props to my dad for his performance and for teaching me about cars. Story 2. Taking too long at an online game to make me forfeit, I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. It's not the pettiest story that was posted in here, but it is the pettiest thing I've ever done, and I'm so proud of it after all these years. 10 years ago, I was really obsessed with a card game called Bariba. There was an online website where you could play it. Each player had a ranking that would go up or down according to your wins or losses. If you chose to forfeit a game, you would lose points. The only way not to lose any points while playing the game was to either win or have the other player forfeit. A Bariba game usually lasts around 40-4 to 5 minutes. Before you start a game, you open a table, you set the table preferences and wait for the opponent to join. One of the preferences is how much time each player gets every turn they make. Each player gets a specific amount of time that resets every time the player takes a turn. The typical time most players choose is 1 minute, and they rarely use the whole minute. They usually play within seconds. You choose the table preferences you want and wait for the other player to join and accept them. A lot of the opponents try to win by deception, meaning they set the time for each player at the maximum 5 minutes. Then they take the whole 5 minutes each turn they make. They only take their turn right before their 5-minute limit runs out. Most of their opponents get frustrated, tired, and eventually forfeit. There's a second way of winning by deception at this game. I will try explaining it without boring you. In order to play this game, you have to create matching sets of at least 3 cards of the same group, for example 4-5-6 of clubs, or 3-4-6-7 of hearts, etc. You start with 11 cards. The more or bigger sets you make, the more points you gather. So in order to win, you have to eventually get more cards. Each turn you take, you can either A. Draw one card from the deck, B. Or take all the cards from the discard pile. Then you discard 1 card. The game rule clearly states that in order to take the discard pile, you have to use one of the cards in the discard pile to create / complement one of your sets, and then put down your set in order to prove that you did, in fact, use a card from the discard pile. The discard pile is one of the most wanted things in the game because you gather a lot of cards at once and take better chances at gathering points. Not a lot of websites gave you the option to play Bariba. Around that time, I only knew one website that had a flaw that was extremely abused by sly players, the second deception method. This flaw did not require the player to justify taking the discard pile. You could just take it without putting down any set or justify your move in any way. So a lot of players at every one of their turns simply took the discard pile, discarded 1 card, usually the exact same card at every turn, so they wouldn't let their opponent gather cards. The opponent was forced to draw every turn and give up valuable cards since they couldn't gather more than 11 cards. The sly opponent every turn took the discard pile that had 2 cards and left only 1 card in the discard pile. Their opponent would draw a card, discard 1, thus making the discard pile 2 cards. So at each turn, the sly opponent would gain 1 more card while their opponent would gather none. This resulted in the sly opponent eventually gathering enough cards to win, while their opponent kept the original number of 11 cards that hardly allowed them to create a set or 2. If you were aggressive enough, you could also start playing the second deception method against them, taking that 1 single card from the discard pile and giving 1 back, etc. But this simply could go on forever, with the game never ending, and most players didn't have the patience or the stomach for that. Except me. So one day, around 8 p.m., I created a table for Bariba. I set my options like always, 1 minute for each player. An opponent enters, so I click Start. He clicks as well. After the game started, to my horror I see that he changed the time setting to 5 minutes. Immediately I knew what that meant, that he intended to use the first deception method in order to make me forfeit. Man, I can't even describe how much I hated those guys. They took forever, busted my nerves, and made the game not enjoyable at all. That night I was at my wits' ends with them. I give him the benefit of the doubt and start playing. And wouldn't you know it, he took the whole 5 minutes to complete his turn. Not only that, but he actually used the second deception method as well. The scumbag of scumbags. I took a few turns normally, just a few seconds each turn, while he used the whole 5 minutes. 20 minutes have passed. Normally we would have been halfway through, but the game was just starting. I sent a couple of messages on the chat, asking to go faster. He completely ignored me. All the while he chose to take all the cards from the discard pile as well at each turn. Second deception method. Well, that was it. I have had it. 2 can play this game. I opened a movie on my PC, set a 4 to 5 minute timer for each turn I took, and then started taking the discard pile at each turn as well, while I use my whole 5-minute time limit at each turn. I only played 5-6 seconds before my time ran out. So at each turn the discard pile only had one card, and we kept doing that without allowing the other one to gather any cards at all. We each remained with very few cards for hours, and both of us took 5 minutes to complete their turn. As I said, a typical Bariba game takes around 40-4 to 5 minutes. In our case, hours have passed, and we were at the same spot we begun. At first, I thought he would get tired easily. Admittedly, he was tougher than I thought. I watched 2 movies, and he was still going strong. The audacity on this guy. I was tired and sleepy, but so determined to not let him have his way. So I put a 3rd movie in. I was a college student with all the time in the world. Around 1:40 a.m., he started getting tired. Instead of using the whole 5 minutes, he started playing a little faster. He maybe used 3-3:30 minutes. It was obvious he was folding. I was very pleased with this, but still kept playing at the same pace. Around 2 a.m., 6 hours after we started our game, he dropped both his deception methods and started playing normally. Each one of his turns was only seconds. He was clearly tired and wanted out. Oh no, you pass. You are not getting off this easily. I'm so mad and tired because you made me sit all night, doing the exact same move at each turn. I will make you regret it. So I kept playing using both deception methods. I used my timer normally and watched my 3rd movie like I watched the other 2. He sat there and endured all of it. The game kept going for another 2 hours. The game ended after 8 hours, at exactly 4 a.m., while he was tired, couldn't wait to get out, played as fast as possible, while sending a few messages to speed it up, which I completely ignored. What was the best part, you ask? That I also won. Story 3. Toxic coworker. I had a senior female coworker that liked to create and spread baseless rumors about others. I don't really care when she did it to other people as long as it's not me. One day, a rumor about me doing indecent behaviors with my GF was spreading like wildfire. She told other people that me and my GF was having sex at my workplace. It got so bad that my supervisor wanted to meet me. Before I met my supervisor, I traced back the rumor to her. During the meeting, I told my supervisor that I know I did nothing wrong, and one day I will make the bitch regret spreading lies about me. I told my supervisor all the lies and rumors that she had spread in our workplace, including rumors about my supervisor and how it has impacted everyone. My supervisor was speechless because I'm usually a pretty reserved person. She told me that she didn't believe the rumors because of my track record. Not to toot my own horn, I'm an excellent employee. Never took an emergency leave, never calling sick. One night during night shift, I was working with the shitty bitch. I put on noise canceling headphone and blasted the whole place all night long, 11 hours, with songs by System of Down and Eminem just to torture her psychologically. Apparently, she tried to leave the workplace and called the supervisor to complain about the loud music, but she got ignored. She complained to her husband too. The next day her husband confronted me in the parking lot and asking me what's my problem with his wife. I don't have any problem with your wife, why don't you ask her? I replied. He tried to follow me and I flipped him off. The next day he came to my workplace and tried to attack me. I purposely make sure that everything was recorded by the CCTV at my workplace. He shoved me and I whispered to him, "You're fucked now. Look at that CCTV and I will make sure your wife get fucked too." He got angrier and tried to shove me again, but my coworkers got involved. The next day, my boss, not the supervisor, called for a meeting and I told her about everything and showed her the CCTV recording. I told the bitch that I will file a police report soon and sue the hell out of your husband, and good luck taking care of your kids when your husband is prison. She was begging me not to do it. I gave her an ultimatum, apologize and don't ever let me see her husband's face near me. She agreed, and I said, "Let this be a lesson for you not to spread rumors about others, because someday you will meet a person like me." 2 weeks after the incident, she got moved in a different department and everyone that she had wronged was thanking me. Story 4. Keyboard thief. Many years ago, I was working at the office and noticed over time that my co-worker would begin to switch my things out with his. It started with the chair, his would squeak, then items would be rearranged on my desk as a joke, and finally it was the keyboard. He would always complain that a few of his keys would stick, and he was always one of those people who had to look at their keyboard in order to type. So one day, I got fed up after noticing my keyboard was having the same problem. I bought a new, nice keyboard. Different from his, so the swap would be obvious if he tried again. I took my old keyboard, which was on his desk, swapped 2 of the keys, and then I bought a remote-controlled outlet and plugged one of his monitors into it and waited eagerly for him to arrive the next morning. He arrives, and it's business as usual. Opens up emails and starts typing away. Then slowly, I notice the mumbling. He starts loudly tapping the keyboard and complaining that the stupid thing is broken. I look over at him and give him a shrug. Soon after, around 10 a.m. or so, I started with the monitor. I would randomly trigger the power via remote off and on. He starts getting more irate, slapping the side of it, so I let it go for the day. I switch his keys back that evening, but leave the remote outlet, as this bothers him the most. For the next 2 weeks, I randomly trigger it on and off at different times throughout the day. After day 2, I notice he has swapped his monitor with mine and plugged it back into the same outlet. I smile to myself and continue onward. By day 3, he says he is going to get IT involved, so I gave them a ring and explained everything to them, and they laugh and say okay. Day 4, IT comes and brings him a new monitor. They plug it in, run some tests, say it's okay, and give me a sly smile and move on. I wait another couple days and start it over again. After some time of listening to him whine and complain, I decide it's enough because he's starting to put IT through some hell. They were good sports about it over the entire exchange, and I removed the remote, and he was never the wiser. Make sure to like and subscribe for more interesting stories.